Hey, what's going on?
Hey, good evening. Let's see.
Oh no, no, we should
Good
have done.
evening and welcome back to another powerful episode of the Purpose and Powerful podcast, where tonight we're talking about dating abroad, passport bros and chicks. I'm your host, Erica Lester, along with my co-host.
The real Jabril. What's going on, E?
That's right. Just another time. So we sent them wild. We sent them crazy with our mention of dating abroad last time,
Hmm.
where we just kind of did the landscape, just clip part of what it's like to possibly be attracted or the attraction of dating people that are not in your country and how alluring and fantastic and exciting that can be. But of course, we did not get into the details, the nuances of what that would even look like.
Right.
So first off the gate, I'm gonna ask the real Jabril, have you had an experience personally with dating someone that's been abroad?
I have call it international dating. Oh, you said passport dating. Yes, I definitely have. But to me, it's more like a fantasy. I call it fantasy dating because you get the best of that person usually over the phone, but when you meet them in person, you do get more of a realistic, especially if you're staying with them or around them more than 2 or 3 days. The true person comes out. And it's so that's my experience of all the times. That sometimes, Erica, I just wish that I just kept it over the phone or FaceTime or because it wasn't by the third or fourth day, I was in most cases ready to go come back home.
So you met over the phone first or in person?
Oh, depends. One that I can think of in particular, I met her at the airport. I was with a buddy. And we were coming back from the airport, and she was a person working inside of where they sell the paraphernalia for that country. And we exchanged numbers and we started talking and sending pictures and videos. And then we just started making this master plan for me to come and visit maybe a month later. I mean, everything is amazing. You think you're gonna possibly marry the person, so they're showing you their best foot forward. Time zones a little different, so you're not getting as much sleep as you usually would on both ends. But that's what makes it even more fascinating and fun. And when you finally are about to meet them, I mean, you just think you're in love. You just can't imagine. I mean, you're on the plane, the anticipation. Let me know when to get there safely. And oh man, I remember all of this. But when I arrived, I mean, the person still looked the same, so it wasn't like a catfish. However, the person within and the way they lived, the house was pretty clean. But they left me at the house all throughout the day, so it was kind of boring because they had to work. But I didn't know that I was going to be there the whole time by myself. But once we had conflict, I was happy to just be there by myself, but it still was uncomfortable place feeling. And remember, I'm international, so I can't really do much. I'm limited. I can't drive anywhere. I think at this time it was no Ubers. It was nothing. So I was just there. Like I felt like a little dog or something, just stuck in the house. And I think a couple of times when she got mad at me, she would hide stuff. So I didn't know what things were. So I was just eating crackers and stuff. I mean, it was a tough thing. I didn't the first night, everything was cool. But after that, I couldn't wait to get home.
Wow, sounds like lack of planning, you
Oh,
know? It sounds like a lack of planning because
mm.
normally, but then that's kind of like a good scenario because the person left you at home. So you were able to see things that they would probably never tell you verbally.
Well, I didn't really go through their things. I mean, I
But
looked.
not going through their stuff, just like how do they live?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that shocked me, and I did realize that during the day she worked at the airport. That was her part-time job. I found out that she was a police officer. So I really felt intimidated when she would get angry because I saw a gun, and so I wasn't trying to argue with her. I was stuck in another country, a woman that's an undercover cop or whatever, and it was it was different. I mean, and she did have a high dominant personality that she didn't show when she was when we were over the phone or when I met her at airport where she was showing me just different things and really sweet, but behind closed doors, she was just tough, tough woman.
Wow, very exciting.
Exciting.
I mean, you discovered that she was undercover cop. She didn't actually come out and tell you
Not
that
until
she was
later.
undercover.
And then she had a billy club. I saw a gun, bullet. I mean, you saw some things, and it was, you know, it would have been if we were on good terms, but when she started getting angry and leave me in the house, and she probably had cameras. I don't know what she. I just knew that I didn't feel comfortable, and I was ready to come home.
Wow, real to real, international. So, as in my own personal experience, there were two. First, when I was really young, I met this guy who was in the military, and I met him in the States, and he was stationed at Aviano Air Force Base in Italy. So I was, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Italy, and
Mhm.
we dated over the phone for a few weeks. Well, we met in person. We dated over the phone for a few weeks, and that lasted about a month and a half. When people are meeting each other, it is some form of excitement because you're not in their country really, and they're not in yours, or it's for a very brief period of time.
Right.
So you don't have that time that you will when you date someone that actually lives where you live. I mean, it's one thing to be involved in a long distance relationship that's like in the country, but then there's a whole other thing when you're dating someone that they're international, right? So that I think we probably talked on the phone for like 2 months, and that distance wore us out, and we're young. And so, you
Mm.
know, you got people here and
Mhm.
there, like in your face, that
Yeah.
becomes the next hot thing of attraction. So that part's kind of harder to weather. But then my ex-husband, we actually met overseas. He was stationed in Germany. And so by the time he actually came back to the States, it's about 18 months. So we did that long distance international relationship, being on two different time zones, 8-hour time difference, that
Mm.
kind of thing. I went over a couple of times. He came on leave a couple of times. So that was kind of like, but there was always an end goal in mind. So then
Right.
we got reassigned to the States. We still was in another state. So then it was still long distance in that aspect. But I had in my head, oh, I'm gonna be a military wife.
Mhm.
No, it didn't being like that. But he eventually had, even by the time we like got even more serious and got married, he eventually had already gotten out of the military, all of those things. But yeah, so it can be. But I've seen all the time, I have friends too who have dated, they've been here, and then they have gone through the process, the actual immigration, becoming US citizens, which can become very expensive. So even if you're the US citizen and your mate is becoming or going to go through the process of citizenship, or reverse, you're going to be living over there abroad, it's very expensive. So while the love and the romance is amazing, the financial costs. See, here's the thing that I want to bring forth um,
Okay.
to the surface here. People get so much flack of women saying, I want a man making six figures or this, that, the third, and the other, right?
Right.
And so people look at them like, oh, you're shopping for a man and all that. But if they knew all the costs, like I said, I am privy professionally and personally of what those costs and steps and processes involve. You can't even become a US citizen unless you can sponsor that person, right? So if you're the US citizen and you're want to marry or date or whatever, and you're talking about being serious and marrying this person,
Mhm.
if you don't have the income to support them with jobs, opportunities, or whatever the like, their citizenship path could not be a reality. There are multiple questions they want to find out. Basically, interviews. How much do you know? Do you know the family, the in-laws, how long you've been dating? They get all in your business.
Mm.
So it's a very daunting process, a very expensive process, and they require tax returns. So you
Mm.
have to have proven that you can support that person through tax return filing. So this is a thing that people are not aware of. But then again, like I said, you get so much flack by saying, I want a man that's making X amount of dollars, whatever, because you better be making that kind of money if you're saying you're going to support that person, let alone if they have children. They want to sponsor some siblings. They want to sponsor, some other family members that they want to bring over and such. They're relying on those income tax returns that you say that you have, and among so many other background checks that you can support them for being here. So that is an evaluation tool. So, I mean, for me, and for you, that idea was very exciting. But if you have went through that process, it's going to make you determined. And we see this every day where someone really got used for the green card or for the citizenship. They make it through the process, but there's evaluation. They have to make it through a certain period of time too. So it can't be like they're married to you for 6 months and you guys get a divorce. They may not be able to stay here. So you have to know. I mean, I've been made aware of situations where people are trying to pay people to marry them.
Right.
And listen, it's not worth it. If you're going to be marrying somebody, I think, Jabril, you said, even on our last show, you told your daughter, if you're going to do it, you better go all in, go all for it. And I would say that don't take your marriage opportunity lightly. Don't marry anybody that you're not really coming into the understanding that you really want to be with that person, not for financial gain, not for financial means, because you are looking for a situation to get burnt very quickly, very fast. And you might not think emotionally you'll be impacted, but you will find out. But they say mess around and find out. Mess around and find out that person can mess you up. And now you have where you've told federal authorities this is the situation. They're living with you. They're married to you. You got joint accounts. They're going to school. They're doing whatever those untruths you told or whatever the story you told as the sponsorship reasons why you are entering into matrimony with these people. You better be on your P's and Q's that you could be brought against federal charges for lying to the government. Serious out here. So, date cautiously, but marry even more cautious.
That's right. You're right.
So do you I know that your father is Nigerian, was a Nigerian, right?
Yes, it was.
Is your mom Nigerian also, or are you a citizen or like natural
U.S.
born citizen?
citizen, but her family was born in Nassau, Bahamas. They
Okay.
moved to Miami, Florida, 1900.
And so you have a situation of immigration in your family. What has their journey been like in terms of that you're aware of in terms of dating someone here or dating abroad or
Well, my mother, I don't think my father at the time was a citizen. He had a student visa, and she met at a college party. No, I don't. That's the only thing that she's told me she's dealt with or were close with somebody abroad. I mean, he had an accent. I mean, he was really real deal, definitely abroad, tribal marks on his face. I mean, so there's no mistaking. And the only reason I don't have an accent because I didn't grow up in Nigeria, grew up here.
have you had an opportunity to visit?
Nigeria, yes,
Yes.
a couple of times, yes. I went, each time I think yes, both times I got to meet my father. No, the first time I didn't, but I met my brothers. So I met my brothers before I even met my father.
Also, you have brothers that are Nigerian.
Yes.
Different way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Different way of life, for sure.
I have three brothers.
Have any of them become U.S. citizens or anything like that since?
No, but they've been here. They came to celebrate. One of them came, not both. And he stayed.
So what?
Hmm?
So what have been the cultural differences? In both my situations, these were both U.S. citizens. So for me, there wasn't really a cultural difference that I had to get to know or to transfer. So I didn't have to think about that. Wasn't a consideration. So I think you mentioned your ex-wife was also, they were of Nigerian descent.
Correct.
Now, did she have more of a U.S. Based culture, or did they have a heavy influence of Nigerian culture in their family?
It was happy, but it was kind of heads or tails. When you're in America, you can enjoy what you're have the rights for in America. You get to Nigeria, you flip the card around and enjoy that. So she had the best of both worlds, for sure.
Did you experience some of those cultural differences in the way you both saw marriage as well?
I'm sure, but we had our own conflicts, internal conflicts, so I don't think it would matter what culture you were from. There's other things that needed to be stronger.
So it sounded like you weren't really a proponent for it. So what would you recommend if someone is saying, hey, I met this young lady or this young man, they're a citizen of X country, and I think I'm falling in love. What would you recommend that they do to try to, beyond love, just to make sure they could evaluate that that was really something they needed to entertain, or is there a way to evaluate whether the person's intentions are really ultimately pure?
I mean, Erica, that whole idea of intentions pure is it's not just international. That's anyone. That's a person. That's a person's character and their integrity.
Right.
Therefore, I would say the same thing, and I would say for somebody, whether it's domestic or international, take time to get to know the person. If it's international, you still should be consistently communicating with them. You make that sacrifice and that time to do that so that you can get to know them abroad. And when you meet, you're not as surprised and you have proper expectations on both ends that are applicable to the relationship. But that'll be my advice. Same thing with domestic, international. Take time to know the person, take it slow, but not too slow, not years, but do your due diligence and do an evaluation of yourself emotionally and what you can and can't handle, because the way you met them is the way you may have to be with them through different courses or times of the relationship. Meaning, if you met them abroad, it's no guarantee they're coming right away, and they may have to go back and forth, and you got to be ready to say to yourself, is this the type of relationship or person that I would love to be with for the rest of my life? Or is it just a fantasy, something I saw on TV and I just want to, I'm going through a crisis or I'm just going through a challenge. I just want to see what this is like. Whatever it is, you need to be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to be able to be honest with the other person who's partaking in this. Give them an opportunity to be, to say, I'm down with this or I'm not. And again, that message or information applies to domestic or abroad.
So you see, it's been a very trendy situation where men are going overseas intentionally, trying to find wives, different things like that, because they're feeling like they don't get the respect or
Hmm.
needs met through the current availability in America. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I
Because
haven't
they're saying they want him like more Serbian, they want
right,
some
but I
Serbian, they
haven't.
want him treated a certain way.
I
What do you think the
understand,
attraction is?
but a lot of men are the fantasy, the one with the accent, the exotic body, or the submission, but it's not necessarily that they want to marry the person. I mean, they could every time they go. I mean, let's say they go 4 times a year. It's not the same person. They just want to have fun. That's what a lot of men do. Everything is very inexpensive. So even the quote unquote love or companionship for that moment, I mean, you can almost buy a meal for that. I mean, it's really unfortunate the way human beings are presented in certain areas. You're talking about exotic, beautiful women that in the States, it wouldn't even, I don't know if they would be that humble or sweet, because this toughens you up here in the US. But most of the guys I know escape the reality of how it is here to go and just have a fantasy and have fun and come back and feel validated and fun. And that's what I've seen a lot of men do. Some women too. Some women just want to get away. They're tired of the guys. They want to be treated like a queen or made to feel like they're a queen for that moment, for that week. And they do that. And they come back and forth. It's therapy. But to say you're going to marry someone, you got to, that's a whole different level. And that, again, that's domestic or abroad. So you definitely, abroad, got to take your time.
Yeah, so see that PREY, preying on the other. But I think it's those women, it's not that the men in their country don't want them to. It's just more they see it's an opportunity for them to escape their reality. But to assume that that man coming 4 times a year, that he's the only one, well, he would not be very, very bright young man if he feels like that is the case. So while she may care for him, it's been known to be a game, an international game for them as well. So I would even say if you're the person entertaining yourself with this therapy session, just know that you both come to the game together. You're players in the game. So if you are sensitive and you don't want to get hurt, you might not want to be so aggressive in your approach of thinking that you're this woman's end all be all. But the real question is, if you have no long-term intentions and you do not want to get married, why are you sending that woman money across the sea?
A lot of men, again, they pay to play games,
Right?
and you pay for comfort. You pay for to feel important. So I think the men do that, and they know that women do respond. Unfortunately, they respond to money, and it's a it makes you feel special or protected. But when a man can drip her here and there, she responds because she'll feel that loss if he pulls it from her.
At the end of the day, play carefully. It's wild in these streets, and there are so many things that can happen, so many negative things, even beyond making babies that you didn't intend, that you didn't set out to have to take care of. So, love is not a game. Your
Right.
relationship should not be either. You should definitely enter into these situations very carefully and think about the long term effects of your decision making. And if you are, the biggest thing, I think the biggest misconception about people in dating, whether it's international, domestic, or what have you, two adults coming to the table, the number one killer of relationships is dishonesty.
Mm.
Because you can get a whole lot further being honest. Meaning, if you just come up and say, "This is all I'm looking for," you'll get some no's, but there'll be people that'll sign up for the foolishness. So I would say the advice, we're getting a question from the audience based on your experience. What advice would you give? I would say to that, if you are interested in dating abroad or dating domestically, is to determine what it is you need and want in a relationship and stick to that. And love will find you. And be willing to hold to your standard because the person you want is certainly out there.
Mm. Patience,
Yes.
patience, and faith.
Patience is a virtue. It's not an overnight. This is definitely a marathon. Finding the right partner is a marathon, not a sprint. And you got to be willing to find that out, whether that's starting for at least 6 months. Remember the first 90 days? Can't really count that. You're just getting to know each other, and you'll still always be getting to know each other throughout the entire relationship. But you definitely don't need that representative. So just wait 6 months. You'll find out who you're dealing with.
Or before.
Absolutely. The moment you say no, that real person is going to show up fast. Well, another wonderful, awesome, fantastic discussion wrapped up, Dr. Jabril.
Yeah, thank you.
Join us next week for Committed to the Uncommitted.
Mm.
Any final closing words for dating abroad?
Yes, I would say if you really want true love, whether it's domestic or abroad, let some of that come to you. Don't go out and feel that you have to seek it because abroad is fun and it's a great fantasy, but the person that you may supposed to be with for the rest of your life would probably be right here and you just missed them. Just missed them. In a previous episode, we learned about the person who got away. So just do an inventory of what's around you, even if it's not what you want, but it's starting to trouble your spirit. And another tell sign of that is even if you act like you don't want the person, but you seem like you don't want them to be with someone else or it bothers you, you need to tap into that and figure out what that's about before you go abroad and search around. The answer could be right in your face. And I know that somebody here needed to hear that. So that's my word.
Very wise words. So join us next week for Committed to Uncommitted. We will see you soon.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Bye.